Hello, everyone. My name is Catherine from SEB Housing. Just waiting for a few more people, it looks like, are joining right now. So tonight I'm going to run the lottery for the 5 affordable rental units at 166 Main Street in Watertown. I'll get the lottery underway in just a few minutes. If you have any questions during the meeting, you're encouraged to go ahead and either type them into the Zoom chat that you've entered, or sorry, the Zoom chat that is on this meeting, or you can unmute yourself and ask a question. So when you came into the meeting, you were automatically muted just to try and cut down on any outside noise. This meeting is being recorded. It's going to be saved to SEB Housing's YouTube channel later on in case any applicants were not able to attend that want to view it. First, just want to give you some background information on the applicants, how the lottery is going to be held tonight. There's no need to write any of this information down. It's going to be provided to you after the meeting. So it'll break down, how many applicants we had for each bedroom size, that sort of thing. So you'll get all of that in an email from me with the lottery results later on tonight. So all households that were approved for this lottery should have a lottery application number. And in the case of 166 Main, your number is between A.001 and A.839. If you don't have that number, or if you forgot it, you misplaced it, please let me know. That is how you're going to see where you were drawn tonight. We're not going to be, calling names or anything like that to protect your privacy. So there's 5 total affordable units. And we received, this is a very popular lottery, we received 774 completed applications. So there's going to be 774 households in this lottery. The lottery application numbers go up to 839 because there was, several duplicates, people who withdrew their application, that sort of thing. So we have one studio 65% AMI apartment. There were a total of 320 applicants for that unit. There's also one bedroom, 65% area median income or AMI, hearing impairment accessible apartment. There were a total of 443 applicants for the 1 bedroom, 65% unit. 6 of those households require or indicated on their application that they require the accessibility features of that apartment. And so those 6 households would have priority on that waiting list over households who don't require the features of the unit. There's also one 2-bedroom 80% AMI apartment, and there were a total of 165 completed applications for that unit. And then there are 2 1-bedroom 80% AMI units for which we had 372 applicants. That waiting list for the 2 1-bedroom 80% apartments will have local preference. So 53 of the applicants for those 2 1-bedroom 80% units indicated on their application that they qualify for local preference. You haven't had to verify any of that yet, just like you haven't submitted your income verifications or anything. That will come at a later stage. This lottery is just one step in the process. So back when you completed your lottery application, you indicated, and then SEB Housing confirmed your household type. So it was either type 1, type 2, type 3. So keep in mind for the 2-bedroom waiting list, type 2 households are going to have priority over type 1 households on the waiting list. And so that's because the affordable housing program is designed so that households don't have priority for units with more bedrooms, I should say, than the household might actually require. So usually that means if you have a larger household, you would qualify for that larger unit over a family who maybe just has 1 person. All right, so because the results of tonight's lottery still need to be sorted by priority, so household type, local preference, whether or not your household requires the disabled accessible unit. When the drawing takes place in just a few moments, even after those results come in, you're not going to know for certain exactly where you fall on any of these waiting lists, even if you're drawn absolutely first. And that's because I still have to sort the results according to those priorities. Not everyone applied for every unit size. So even if you're drawn, further down the line, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have a pretty favorable, position on the waiting list. And same with if you're drawn first. You might have been drawn first, but you only applied for the units that have local preference, and you don't have local preference, so you're going to be further down the line. So all that is to say, you're not going to know where you fall on the waiting list during this call tonight, but you're going to know soon after, because I'm planning on sorting the waiting list tonight. So that will be emailed. The waiting list will be emailed to you along with some more information about next steps and all of that. And so you have a look out for that email later on tonight. It will come from info@scbhousing.com. So you'll see those results pretty soon, just not on the call tonight. I will be doing the drawing. You just won't know where you fall on the waiting list until later. Okay, so there's going to be 2 drawings tonight. I'm going to be using the website random.org to complete the drawing. And first, I'll be doing the local preference drawing. So that will only include households who have indicated that they either live in Watertown or work full-time within the city. I'm going to insert those lottery application numbers for those households into a list randomizer function in random.org. I'm going to screen share my screen so you'll be able to see it. And the website is going to digitally generate a random order. So the results are instantaneous. You'll be able to see it on your screen. And we do it this way just to try to keep the results as truly random as possible. Obviously, this is a huge lottery as well, so I don't think anybody wants to see me pulling 700 applicant numbers out of a box. So I'll insert the application second after the local preference drawing, which is going to have 113 lottery application numbers because there was 113 local preference households. After that drawing, I'll be doing the general drawing. And during that drawing, I will be randomizing all 774 lottery household numbers. Using the same function, you'll see it. So I'm going to share my screen now just to kind of give you an idea of what that's going to look like. This isn't the drawing itself. This is just kind of an FYI as to what it's going to look like when I do the drawing. So I'm going to pull that up now. Once again, this is just the random.org website that I'm going to screen share now so you can see what I'm talking about. And then I will stop sharing my screen, give you a little bit more information, and we will do the drawings. So here's random.org, just a website that is really handy to be able to randomize numbers and lists and some other things. So this is what I'll be using, the list randomizer. There's going to be a lot more numbers than what I'm about to put in right now, but I'm just going to write in, numbers 1 through 5. When I actually do the drawing, it's going to have all of the lottery application numbers, so A.001 through A.839. Right now, just an example, like I said, you see numbers 1 through 5 here. I click randomize, and then it spits out the random order that it has generated. So as you can see here, number 5 was first, number 4 was last, and that's what it's going to look like. So I will, show you the results. I'll put them into a spreadsheet that I have to make sure I'm able to sort the results when I'm going through later on tonight and generating the waiting list. And I will also make sure to screenshot it so I have all of that. All right. So that's what it'll look like. Just wanted to give you an idea before we actually do the drawing. So what random.org is doing is it's generating an order for me, so I'm able to then take the results of the drawing and populate them onto the waiting list. So the waiting list determines the order in which households will get to reserve apartments. So it's important to remember that the order from tonight's drawing, again, is not the final order of the waiting list. I first need to sort them based on the preferences that we talked about. So after the lottery, like I said, there's going to be an email sent to all lottery households with more information on next steps. You'll get it no later than tomorrow morning from info@sdbhousing.com. And there will be a copy of the waiting list, the sorted waiting list attached to that email. So you'll be able to see where your lottery number is positioned relative to other lottery applicants. And then also keep in mind that if you applied to more than one unit type or size, so maybe you applied to both a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom, you'll notice that your lottery application number is on more than one waiting list. So make sure to check all the waiting lists if you did apply for more than one unit. So when you get that email with the waiting list, you're going to see that the top households on those lists are highlighted in green. And that's just an indication that those households are going to be invited to move forward in the process right away. And the next step in the process is to complete a lease application with the leasing office. So the leasing office over at 166 Main Street, they're probably going to be, just like similar to other maybe lease screenings that you've had in the past if you've ever rented before, doing credit check, reference checks, that sort of thing. When they're doing that, the leasing office over there will very likely invite more households than there are available units to complete a lease screening. And that's just because, applicants sometimes drop off, they're no longer interested, they're found ineligible. And of course, you don't want to go one by one and, have it take many months to rent an apartment. So just be aware of that there may be several people who are ahead of you who are also being screened. So if you're found lease eligible, the households with the highest position on the waiting list will have the first chance to select and reserve an apartment. So if you're not one of the top households that's highlighted in green on the waiting list tonight, you're not going to be moving forward right away. If for one reason or another, applicants ahead of you on the waiting list drop off, maybe they're not interested anymore or they're found ineligible, the leasing office will be contacting households who are further down the waiting list. So your takeaway should just be, you may not be moving forward right away if your lottery application number is quite far down these waiting lists. You will only be called forward if people ahead of you drop off the list. And then again, it's important to just keep in mind that we have only completed your initial program screening. So you haven't been found lease eligible by the leasing office, and you also haven't submitted any income information to us to confirm what you self-reported on your application. So you still need to go through that screening with SDB Housing as well and provide pay stubs, that sort of thing, so we can confirm your eligibility for the affordable housing program. And that takes place after you have completed the lease screening with the leasing office and reserved an apartment. So all of you should have already received a documentation requirements guide, and that sort of detailed everything that you will eventually need to submit if you are one of these top waiting list households after the waiting lists are compiled. And, it let you know how many pay stubs, what year of the tax returns you'll need to submit, and that sort of thing. Once you are called forward to submit all of that information, you'll have about 10 days to do so. And of course, we work with you to make sure that you get a completed package into us. We've been told that the units at 166 Main Street, they are scheduled to be available to lease right after the lottery, or right after you've gone through the necessary screening. So there shouldn't be much of a wait after all of these screenings are finished for you to be able to sign a lease. And then just a couple quick things before I move on to the drawing about parking at 166 Main Street. So this property has a very limited number of parking spaces. So you might have read in the marketing materials, like the information packet or the ad for this lottery, that the renters of 3 of the affordable units are going to have access to full use parking spaces. You'll have a dedicated space. But there's also 2 renters who are going to have access to spaces that are only available overnight, since those parking spaces will be used by retail customers in the area during the day. So in order to figure out which units are kind of attached to which spaces. I had to run just a quick drawing earlier today to assign the parking spaces to each of the 5 units. So just an FYI, and this is something that you would know if you're signing a lease with the leasing office, but the results of that drawing were that the studio unit, which is going to be unit 305 or 305, is going to be assigned a full use parking space. So is the 1-bedroom hearing accessible unit, which is unit 308. That also has a full use parking space. And then the third and final unit that has a full use parking space included with it is unit 504, and that's the 2-bedroom. The 2 units that are going to have the overnight only parking space associated with them is unit 208, which is a 1-bedroom, and 404, which is a 1-bedroom. So just a heads up on those. The results of that parking drawing are going to be shared with the leasing office, and they're going to have more details for you about utilizing their parking on site. So when you're signing a lease or when you're going through the lease screening, you'll have that information presented to you again. All right, final note before I move on to the drawing. So just a reminder, if you end up renting one of the units at 166 Main Street or any affordable apartment, just keep in mind that you have to recertify your income every year. So if you if you sign a lease for June 1st in Watertown and probably around this time next year or even earlier, you would need to submit your recertification documentation to the leasing office. So we really just suggest that everyone maintain a copy of records of your, pay stubs, income, tax documentation for as long as you're renting an affordable apartment. All right, so before I move on to the drawing itself using random.org, do you have any questions for me about what I just went over? Everybody has their application number. I'm going to pull up random.org again, and we'll get the drawings underway.
I have a quick question, but
sure. Yep.
Can one move in if they should get picked July 1st or June 15th, or does it have to be June 1st?
No, it doesn't have to be the first of the month. So it can be any day of the month. You would just work that out with the leasing office at the time of lease signing.
Okay. But they want you before August, right? Not necessarily.
No, not necessarily. No, there's no dates in mind that, the leasing office likely isn't going to approve, if you are all set and ready to go, you've been approved by SCB Housing and by them and you want to move in November 1st or something, that's probably not reasonable for them. But no, there's no set date that I know of by which they want everything leased.
I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Can you be on more than one list at a time? Can you apply for another lottery at the same time that you're waiting for this one, or per se another one?
Yep, you can be on as many lotteries as you want. Yep, no issue with that.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yep, no problem.
And if you chose like a 2-bedroom and you don't get picked, can you then apply again? You probably put at the bottom of the waiting list, but you could, right? You have an open, other people like my cousin who's relocating, he could put his name on a list and it would just be at the bottom, right?
Yeah, so for this, there will be so many people on these waiting lists that anyone who applies as a non-lottery household is going to be applying, after the units are already leased. But yeah, you can, these units are going to be affordable for the lifetime of the property. So there will be a waiting list eventually that's open so someone could apply and get their name on the list.
Thank you. So that's the waiting list as opposed to a lottery. Lottery is when something is being developed.
Right. The lottery just happens one time and then it's just a waiting list from there on.
New developments, then I got you. Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else? All right. So I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to screen share again. I have all of these.
I have a question. Sorry to interrupt.
Yep, no problem.
So I didn't know that you could apply to several apartment styles at once. Would it be too late to apply for, say, a studio and a 1-bedroom at this time, or is that something you could redo?
Yeah, so you mean within this lottery, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so unfortunately, since the application period is closed, you're not able to add another unit size to your application. But you know, if later on, you know, if for some reason the studios don't lease and we're, you know, the leasing office is way down the waiting list, you could always submit a waiting list application to get your name on the studio list. But I find it very hard to believe that with, you know, several hundred people on some of
Right.
these waiting lists that they wouldn't have already leased it.
Right.
But yeah, the other question was too, there's also other lotteries, obviously within the state and the country. So if you wanted to apply somewhere else, you could also do that to a lottery.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. All
Is
right.
this a bigger size than most, or just curious?
Yes. Yeah. This Watertown lottery was much more popular than ones that are further outside from Boston. Yeah. Yeah. Some of the lotteries we do for towns that are further west or south or north even are much smaller. So, all right. I'm going to screen share again here.
What is your name? Because it just says SEB Housing.
Yeah, my name's Catherine.
Catherine, thank you.
All right, so I'm screen sharing again. Hopefully you can see that. And can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, so this is just the numbers here that I'm going to be grabbing for the local drawing. So these are the lottery application numbers for everyone who indicated that they have local preference. They either live or work full-time in Watertown. I'm going to copy these numbers. I'm going to put them into the list randomizer function in random.org. And these are the 113 application numbers here for the local drawing for 166 Main. In Watertown, I'm going to click randomize, and these are the results from that. I'm just going to
Can you make it bigger?
copy these results. Yep, so I'm gonna, just give me a few minutes. I'm going
Okay,
to be putting these into this here, and then I'm going to, hold on one second. I'm gonna make this a little bit easier for you to see, but before I scroll through and have you see the results of this, I'm going to do the general drawing. So if anyone on this call wants to see where they are, I can look the number up for you. And if you're a local household, you're going to have a placement on both of these drawings. So that was the local preference drawing. 113 application numbers have been sorted by the list randomizer function. Have saved the results there. And now I'm just going to do one more drawing, which is going to be the general drawing. And that includes all 774 application numbers that are here. And I'm going to go back into that list randomizer and X out of it completely so we can make sure. And I'm going to paste them here. And again, this is the 774 application numbers for 166 Main Street. This is everyone that was in the lottery. And I'm going to randomize that. And those are the results. Make sure that everybody's there. And again, I'm just going to copy these results into a spreadsheet that it's going to make it easier both for you to see the results and for me to sort them later. So just give me 1 second and I'm going to scroll down so you can either see where you were drawn, or you can ask me to find your number for you, because I know it might not be the easiest thing either to see on here or to find because there's so many numbers. So I'm going to make this a little larger. This was the local drawing. And this was the order that the application numbers were drawn for the local drawing. How many? We only have 25 people on the call, so I think it might make more sense, rather than me scrolling through this, it would make more sense for you to ask me if you would like me to tell. Again, these results have not been sorted into waiting lists. So if you're number one on one of these lists, it doesn't mean you're going to be number one on a waiting list, because we still need to sort the results. But if you would like to know where your number is, I think it's probably going to be easier for me to just find it for you.
And what do you mean by sort the results again?
Yep, so I have to sort the results by household type. So if you are a type 1, type 2, or type 3 household, if you're a type 2 household and you applied for a 2-bedroom unit, you're going to have priority for those units over someone who's a type 1 household. And then we also have to take into consideration local preference for some of these waiting lists. So there's a few things to consider when we're putting together the waiting list.
So the idea is that, so the idea is that as long as you're pretty high on the waiting list, you're more likely to get one of those units in any case.
Right. So once I sort the waiting lists, if you're towards the top of them, it's very likely that you're going to be called forward to the next step, which is to complete the leasing application with the leasing office.
Okay, thank you.
So I have one direct message here. I missed how to find my number. Yep. So let me, now this is someone who doesn't have their number at all. So let me just stop the screen share real quick, because I don't want to pull up the spreadsheet with all of that information. But I will find this person's number, and then I'll get back to you all with the placement that you're looking for, because I know some of you are sending me messages for that, which is great.
And one more thing, sorry if you can do things at once. What's the move-in timeline for these units?
Yep. So we've been told that the units are ready. So there shouldn't be much of a wait at all once you've gone through all the screening.
Okay.
So I'm going to share my screen again. Just give me 1 second here.
I was trying to do a chat, but I don't see your name. So
All right, just give me 1 second here.
Maybe, I guess it's your host, okay.
So actually, this is going to be easier for me to just say on the call here. So someone had sent me a message about locating the lottery application number. I'm not seeing your number on this spreadsheet that we have of all of the approved applicants. So you should have received a number by email if you were approved for the lottery. If you didn't complete your application, or if there was something that you were looking to complete with SDB housing and you weren't able to do that by the deadline, you may not have been entered into the lottery. So you can email info@sdbhousing.com to confirm with them. But as your name is how you sent it in this message to me, I'm not seeing it. If it might have been, if it's shortened, or if it may have been under a different last name, please let me know. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to get the first person here who had messaged me their placement on, or I shouldn't say placement, your order number here that you were drawn. Let me just share again. All right, so I'm sharing my screen again. I'm looking for, go back into the chat here. I'm looking for 0586, A.0586. And in the local drawing, you were 41st. In the general drawing, you were 174th. And then my next number here is A.0159. You were 769th on the general drawing, and you were 71st on the local drawing. Now I am going to look for 0686. I'm in the local drawing, so that's why it's not coming up. 686, you were 156 in the general drawing. I have a direct message here, 0561. 0561, you were 652nd on the general drawing, and then local, you were drawn 42nd. Now I'm going on to A.0629. Sorry, again, I'm on the local here. 0629. Um, 0629. You were drawn 644th in the general drawing. 0352. You were drawn 371st. 0013. You were drawn 550th. Let me just make sure here that you were not on the local list. 0457. You were drawn 28th in the general drawing, and on the local list, you were 55th. 0703. 0703, you were 576 in the general drawing. 0585. Is that right? Yeah, 0585, you were drawn 390th. And you were not on the local list, which you probably already knew. Francesca, I think I already got yours, right? The 0013. I'll look it up again for you just to make sure. 550th. 0792 on the general drawing. You were 286 on local. This is 0792. You were 21st. 0339. 0339, you were 320th on the general drawing, and on the local list, you're not coming up on the local list for me. 0339, not coming up on the local list there. 0593, you were 466 on the general drawing. 0785. 0785, you were 288 in the general drawing. So I have a direct message now. There is no, the waiting list still needs to be generated. So these results from tonight aren't really going to tell you much right now. I still have to sort the results onto the waiting list. So I have someone asking for a local 2-bedroom unit. Where is my number? I don't know that yet. I will know it later on tonight when I sort the results. So I can look up what your number, how it was drawn. So 0774. In the general drawing, you were drawn 345th. In the local drawing, 0774 was drawn 33rd. And I'll use those numbers as well as everyone else's number to sort the waiting list, to populate the waiting list.
I have a question. Oh,
sure.
sorry.
Yeah.
So is this build not, is it not built yet? Like,
No, it is. I don't know if I believe they're currently leasing the market rate unit, so I think it's done.
Okay.
I haven't
Yeah,
been
it
by
is.
it, so I don't know for 100% sure, and I didn't confirm that with the leasing office, but I do know that they said that leases would be available very soon after the lottery, so it
okay.
must
It's
be.
hard to see. I'm just saying because it's hard to, like, I don't even see a image of the actual building yet, or like
No,
raw
it's
images of
built.
the
It is
actual
built.
apartment.
Mhm.
Huh?
It's built. I live in the area. It's built.
Mm.
They're leasing it. But I have a question.
Mhm.
So I don't get, all right, general versus local. Like I'm a local, so what would the general be? I mean, you're on 2 different waiting lists, so that's it, general and
No,
local?
there's not 2 different waiting lists. So there's a few different waiting lists, and the local drawing is giving an order of priority for those people who have local priority. So there's only a few, I think there's 2 units that have local preference, and all the other units, the 3 other units, are not going to have local preference. So if you're a household who lives in Watertown, you're not going to have priority over non-Watertown residents on 3 of the other waiting lists.
Okay. Do you know
So
which
that's
3?
why I have to do we have to do the drawing for both local and general. So we have
No.
the order of priority for both of those types.
Do you know which one there isn't a differential?
Which one there isn't a preference for?
Yeah, preference or whatever you call it.
So let me bring up the
So like if you're number 20, that doesn't mean you're 20, but it means like, because you've got to go through another list or something. I don't follow all of it, but right.
so the waiting lists haven't been generated yet. This is the lottery is just one step in the process. So the waiting list will be created tonight, and you'll see where you fall based on the preferences here, or the order of priority here.
I
So
don't know if you right away agrees, but if you're up in the first 50, you might have a shot at those who are.
yeah, I mean, so generally it's better to have a higher, or a, to have been drawn earlier in the lottery, yes. But that's not the deciding factor by any means. There's still other, factors, whether or not you apply for a 2-bedroom, but you're only a 1-person household, whether or not you need the features of the hearing impaired unit, that sort of thing. So right now what you're seeing on your screen is there's only 2 units that have local preference. So local preference households would have priority over non-local preference households for the 2 80% AMI 1-bedroom apartments. So that's what you're seeing there. And then the open pool waiting lists that are listed here are waiting lists that don't have local priority. So if you applied for a 2-bedroom apartment and you had a local priority, you're not going to have preference over households who don't have local preference. So I'm going to go back here just because there's some other people who are waiting for the numbers. So 0599, you were drawn 553rd in the general drawing. Let me just make sure you didn't mention, yeah, you're not on the local list. Okay, 0828. for the general drawing, 0828. You were 770th in the general drawing. 0585. You were 390th in the general drawing, and you weren't on the local list. Okay, so we've got 0829. You were drawn 53rd in the general drawing. A couple other ones here, so 0318. You were drawn 599th in the general drawing, and you were not on the local list. Yep, sorry about that for some of these placements here that are pretty far down. It's not great to see, but you know, the good thing about it is you don't know for sure where you're going to be placing on the waiting list. If you're at the very bottom, it's unlikely, unless you're going for the hearing accessible unit, that you'll be at the top of these waiting lists. But the good part about it is you will remain on these waiting lists unless you remove yourself from them. So once all of the affordable apartments lease, as time goes on and the units turn over, annually, the leasing office will reach out to everyone on the waiting list to confirm if you want to remain on the waiting list, if you're still interested in the property, so that when they are looking to backfill the unit, so someone moves out and they need to now lease the affordable unit again, they don't want to be calling and inviting people forward who are no longer interested. So they are going to want to keep their waiting list up to date, and they'll ask you each year if you're wanting to stay on. And of course, just like I said earlier, you're welcome to apply to any other lottery that you see fit, either with SEB Housing or anyone else. So the waiting lists will be populated tonight, and I'll send them to each of you. I have your email addresses. If there's anyone who didn't provide an email address, we'll send the results by mail. I don't know if we have any of those. But any other questions before I let you go and start the sorting?
Yeah, just
I have
quick
one more
question. Sorry,
Mhm.
just quick. You said, I understand about the parking, but does it cost, or does that come with the rental price?
The parking, you mean?
Yeah.
Yep, that's included. So every unit has parking. Like I said, 3 of them have full use parking spaces that are connected now to the apartment, and then the other 2 have the overnight guaranteed parking. And yes, it's included. There's no charge for the parking.
Yeah, I think you said the 2-bedroom had the overnight. The 2-bedroom had the overnight. That was a good one.
Yeah, the two bedroom unit has full use.
Mm-hmm.
It was the 2 1-bedrooms that only have the overnight.
Right. Okay,
And
thank
what do you mean by overnight specifically? Can you explain that again?
Yeah, so unfortunately, the 2 units that have only overnight parking, it's 2 parking spaces that are going to be used for retail and other businesses during the day. But then by 6 p.m. it will be available to the affordable renter who is renting the apartment that is associated with that unit. So you'll be guaranteed a space overnight, but just not necessarily at all hours.
And at what time do you have to leave in the morning?
I want to say it was like 8 to 6 or something. But the leasing office is going to know more about that than we would. I believe it wasn't noon. It was earlier than some people might be heading out the door. So it's something to consider if one of the units that you're looking to rent has that overnight spot.
And if the unit is specifically like a unit that is can be used for people with disabilities, do they get preference even if you've sorted, even as you randomized this list? So even if that makes sense to you.
Well, so there's only one apartment that has accessible features, and it's the 1-bedroom, 65% AMI hearing impairment accessible apartment.
Right.
Yes, anybody who indicated on their application that they need the features of that unit will have priority on that waiting list over a household who doesn't need the features of the unit.
And so for this specific lottery, was that just for 80% AMI, like 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and like maybe 2 bedroom, 65% AMI? So is there a 1 bedroom unit that's 65% AMI that this lottery works that?
There's a 1 bedroom, 65% AMI, but it's the hearing accessible
Right.
apartment. So what's going to happen is if the 6 households who indicated that they require the accessible features of that apartment, if they're ineligible or if they determine that they're no longer interested,
Mhm.
they this unit will be able to be offered to households that don't need the accessible features of the unit.
I see.
So that's why there's still like 400 applicants for that unit, even though 6 people have priority because they may need the features of the unit.
I see. Okay.
I know it's a kind of a long-winded
Yeah.
way to say it,
No,
but
that makes sense. Mhm.
yeah, there is no other 65% 1 bedroom apartment. There is a 65% studio that
Yes,
doesn't have
yes.
accessible features. Yeah.
How,
Okay.
can I ask you a question? How do they determine, I toured the market rate, I mean, I toured the place. How do they determine which unit? Is it SEB or is it the leasing place, Charles Gate, I think that's who they are. How do they determine which unit goes to what? Like there was one that had a balcony and one didn't, and one was SEB. So how, that's not negotiable. That's, you guys choose the units that you want for, you know what I'm saying?
No, so the
It's-
developer submits which units are going to be affordable, and the city and the state sign off on those as part of the application that we put through for the
see.
developer before the
Mhm.
lottery and marketing period even start.
Gotcha. So that's not negotiable with them, but no,
Right.
but it isn't. It's just a done deal. Okay.
Yeah, so those units, the units that aren't designated as affordable right now are being marketed for market rate.
Right. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Anyone else? All right, so like I said, you should expect, hopefully by later on tonight, an email from info@scbhousing.com. That will be an email from me with next steps, the waiting list, a little more information, kind of some of the information that I mentioned tonight, how many applicants for each waiting list, that sort of thing. If you have questions on it, once you see it, let us know. And if you're one of the households that has their lottery application number highlighted in green, you can expect to be connected with the leasing office over at 166 Main Street to move on to the lease screening, which will be the
So
next
then
step in
you,
the
because
process.
all the documents are submitted to those guys, not you guys, right? The
Well,
rest.
so you're going to do the lease screening with them, which is going to be, credit check, background check, that sort of thing. But then if you reserve a unit with them, you would be sent back to SCB Housing to do your income verification, and so we can confirm your qualification for the affordable housing program. So there's still a couple more steps. You've kind of just self-reported your income for right now to get into the lottery, and then we need to do the lease screening and the full
So-
program screening.
So then it doesn't work out. You don't owe them anything if turns out you're not eligible. If you are eligible and it works out, or either way, well, you can, up until you sign that lease, decide you want it or not, correct? I mean.
Yeah, of course. Yep.
It's still,
Yep.
and okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
So
Thank you all for your questions and for your patience with the process. So I'll be in touch later on tonight.
How late do you
Johnny.
work? Do you like your job? Probably take you an hour to do this, and then you'll send
Oh,
it.
it'll take me a while, but that's okay. It's a big lottery, so I know that a lot of people are kind of waiting to hear where they are. So
Thank you.
my job. All right. I'll see you. I'll be in touch soon. And like I said, any questions, just let us know.
Good luck, everybody.
Good luck. Have a good night.
You too.